Hello, citizens of YouTube land.
Hey,
It's your president and your VP. And as promised, it's not The Godfather Part 2, but rather we're starting our 12 Days of Christmas spectacular special, if you want. Yeah. So
12
it's
movies,
actually a
12
little bit
days.
late as far as that goes, but
Yeah.
by Christmas, we will have covered 12 movies overall for 12 days. So, and this
Well,
begins
yeah, yeah.
with It's a Wonderful Life, which premiered December 23rd, 1946.
Yep.
It was made for a budget of $3.18 million and made $3.3 million at the box office, making it actually at the time and even to this day by our own standards
A box
a
office
box
bomb.
office bomb. However, critically, it was also a failure at the time, as critics were pretty harsh to it. However, as time has went on, it is currently sitting, for those of you who do care, at a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Where's the other 5%?
So, it was directed by Frank Francis Capra. It stars James Stewart, aka Jimmy Stewart. Most people will know him as just plain old Jimmy Stewart, so we'll just call him Jimmy when we're talking about him.
Yeah.
Donna Reed, who later on went on to do the Donna Reed Show, which was a very popular 50s sitcom. So she later
Oh.
on went on to do that, and finally, one of the leading actors in the Barrymore family, from the Barrymore family, Lionel Barrymore. Those three playing, of course, George Bailey, Mary Bailey. Well, we'll get to that. Actually, it's Mary Hatch, and then later Mary Bailey, but we'll get to that. And finally, as Lionel Barrymore as the iconic villainous Mr. Potter. So let's get right into it. This movie begins with basically like some bells or some lights going on, and it's meant to symbolize, well, quite frankly, guys, because it is Christmas time, we will talk about it as it would actually be viewed here. So it's a conversation between basically God and an angel. And God is telling this angel, Clarence, and Clarence refers to God as Joseph. Just go with it. He is, they're having a conversation about George Bailey, and Joseph wants Clarence to go down to Earth to help him. But first, he's got to show him all of the events that have led up to the reason why he needs his help. So we are showing a series of sequences, the first beginning with George Bailey as a young boy. And he's sledding with a group of children, and his brother accidentally falls into a pond because the ice breaks.
Mm-hmm.
George, he risks his life and limb without a second thought, mind you, jumps right in and rescues his brother. But it costs him the hearing in his left ear. So he lives the rest of his life with hearing loss in his left ear. This is very, very important, though, guys. It's very important, everything that we talk about, because it all leads up to it. So, yeah, and just a little bit later, we see George. He's a young boy still. It's probably maybe 6 months to a year after the last incident with his brother, and he's working for Mr. Gower, who is the pharmacist in town. But Mr. Gower gets a telegram, and the telegram is that, well, his son passed away. And it's kind of tragic, guys, and we do kind of have to talk about it a little bit like that. But it sends Mr. Gower into this downward spiral
Mm-hmm.
immediately. And Mr. Gower is drunk, and he mixes up the medication that was supposed to go to a sick child who had, I think it was diphtheria, is what they said it was.
Ah.
And so the child was supposed to receive the medication, but George intervenes because he sees that the pharmacist mixed up the medication and doesn't deliver it to the child. so the child doesn't get sick. But Mr. Gower
Further,
is upset that he didn't deliver the pills. So, what does Mr. Gower do?
he
In a
smacks
drunken
the crap
rage,
out of
he
him.
just smacks the crap right out of George Bailey. And George is like, my shoulder, you're hurting my shoulder.
No, it's his ear because you
No,
smack
he hit
him.
him in the shoulder.
Well, no, it's actually his ear, Dad.
But it's his shoulder that he's complaining about.
But it's his ear because he's
And,
smacking him in his ear.
and so he explains to him, he says, look, Mr. Gower, you were upset. I knew you didn't mean to. I know you would never do it. I'll never tell. And he never does. He never tells anybody about the pills. He never tells anybody about, well, quite frankly, the child abuse.
yeah.
I'm sorry to put it out there like that, but that is what is happening in the film. So I'm only describing what happens in the film, guys. So at the same time, we're introduced to a little Mary Hatch, who is basically like George's crush, like from the very get go. Like she is crushing hard on George. I don't think the
And
feeling is reciprocated yet, but it does happen. It does happen. She says to him in his bad ear when they're still children, George, I'll love you till the day I die, because she knows that he can't actually hear it. But he he's just but George is a good kid and he's got big dreams, guys. He wants to travel the world. He wants to build skyscrapers. He wants to build large cities. He wants to do it all. But there's some things that happen. First and foremost is it's a few years later and he's graduated high school and he's about to go off to college. And uh he's on his way to college. His brother has just graduated from high school too and is going to go on into the military. More on that later.
oh yeah.
He then he's having a good time with that same little Mary Hatch, and they're singing a song, Buffalo Gal, Won't You Come On Tonight. I guess it was a pretty popular song at the time, guys. So there's that. So they're talking and quite frankly flirting, and they're having a good time. And well, it ends ironically with Mary with nothing to cover herself, hiding in a bush. And this happens because they're like running away and George like steps on her robe. And guys, this part is actually a little, how can I best put this? Problematic. And I say this because of the time period that we now live in, guys, not necessarily for back then,
Yeah.
but because George is kind of like he's got the robe, and being the nice guy that he is, he would eventually just hand it over to her. But he's having a little bit of fun with it, where he's like kind of intentionally keeping it from her. But this is all cut short because, well, George's father,
Just passed away.
yeah,
From a stroke, I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so this whole time, uh, Mr. Potter, who is basically the man who owns everything in town. And guys, oftentimes this is the case in small towns. It's not just, okay, a few things that we've learned so far in our research. One is that the FBI actually came out about a year after the movie came out and was like, this movie was funded by communists, more or less, because they say that the Mr. Potter character is meant to represent that bankers are evil and that all the rich
But he
people are
doesn't own
mean
the
and
bank.
evil. But he's supposed to represent that, according to them anyway.
Oh.
Had to throw that out there because, yes, in fact, Mr. Potter does, in fact, actually own pretty much everything in town, except for the building and loan that was started by George Bailey's father. And George Bailey, as a young kid, stood up to Mr. Potter and basically was like, "You're not half the man that my dad is, and he's a bigger man than you'll ever be." And he just gives him what for, because George ain't afraid to do that. All right, just just throwing it out there. He's that type of guy. He's going to give you his honest, true opinion, which is a good thing. So, anyways, he, uh, it's like I said, it's a few years later, and his dad has died, and Mr. Potter is going to step in, and he essentially wants to close down the building alone because he's like on the board of directors and this and that, and he wants to close it down. And mind you, George is about to leave. I mean, he doesn't have to do anything else. He's committed his obligation. He's finished high school. He's going to go off to college. He's going to live his own life. Right? Sounds plausible. Sounds okay.
Yeah.
But his family, his dedication to his town, to Mary, to the people, to see that there will be another place that people can go and get an actual decent loan to start building a home, and they don't have to live in, let's call them what they are, shacks. And let's call Mr. Potter what he is. Let's not mince words here. Mr. Potter in this story is a slumlord, y'all.
Well, actually, since it takes place during the Depression, it's most likely that Mr. Potter would have owned what were known as Hoovervilles
Or shanty towns.
or shanty towns, which are the same thing as Hoover towns.
Yeah, so there's that, guys. But I call a spade on this channel, and we call it like we sees it. And Mr. Potter is a slumlord. So he wants the building. Bailey's like, George just says, that ain't happening. Okay? Y'all don't need to sell out to him. But the only way that they won't sell out to him is if he stays and runs the company with his uncle. So time and time and time again, guys, this man gives up everything. Okay? He gives up his dreams. He gives up whatever hopes he had. And I know I'm making it sound kind of a bummer, but it's really not. Because even though he gave those things up, he's got something much more valuable. He's got the love of his life. He's got his children later on. We'll get to that. But yeah, he gets children. He gets wife. Um, so a few years go by, and the depression hits.
The Depression hits hard in this small town as the banks close down.
Yeah.
Temporarily, mind
There's
you.
only two that are left as far as being able to lend money. George Bailey and Mr. Potter.
And so everybody at the town starts freaking out and starts asking George for their money back. And he says, listen, I don't have your money, guys. The banks have your money.
He also tells them, listen, guys, I don't have your money. Okay? He says something like, Pete, your money is in Bill's house. Bill, your money's in Harry's house, or whatever it was. But the point is that everybody's money that was invested is actually in the houses that they had built.
Yeah.
Because George is actually kind of a smart businessman, as it's revealed that a banking advisor comes to see Mr. Potter and tells him that Bailey Park, this is afterwards, but we're okay. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Well,
as they're about to make the run on the bank, or on the run on George, he's about to have his honeymoon with said Mary. Mary, being the kind, selfless woman that she is, produces the $2,000 that they were going to use for their honeymoon. And this one dude, we kind of have to point out, okay, he could have taken a lot less. The one dude that demanded his entire $272. That guy could have taken a lot less. Yeah, $242. That dude could have taken a lot less.
He's like, this is only to help us get past the banks, guys. And he's like, I want my $242. And he's like, all right, whatever. And then the other dude's like, I want 250. He's like, come on, man. Do you really think you can just go by with 20? He's like, yeah, I guess I can go by with 20.
And then, like, a little old lady comes up and says, George,
I just want 1750.
and he like kisses her on the cheek. And but the point is that they somehow, some way managed to keep the doors open and did not foreclose, did not close at all. By the end of the day, they had $2 left.
And he puts it in the safe.
So they weather the depression, and things are going a little bit better for George. Not really, but kind of.
After the depression is over.
It's getting a little bit better for him. He's got children. He's got his wife. They got their house. It's a house that's kind of run down, but Mary's doing her best. Things are looking up. At Bailey Park, the housing division that the Bailey's George's father and his uncle and now him have developed and oversaw. He's able to sell these houses.
He's making more money off of those houses than Mr. Porter is off of his own houses.
As 90% of all the people in Bailey Park were, in fact, former tenants of Mr. Potter.
And Potter's Field. In which the bank owner who's like advising Mr. Porter is saying Bailey's selling these houses for much less than what they're worth.
Yeah. Because he can. I mean, they're worth like twice what they're actually building. So that kind of speaks to what George Bailey's business acumen is, right? Because he's able to build these houses that are actually worth twice more than what they put into to begin with. So that's a smart strategy.
It's just simple trickle-down economics.
Exactly. As they had taken the money invested, basically, from the people that had gotten the loans to build the houses, they took that money, reinvested back into it, and yeah. So anyways, Bailey Park's doing pretty well. And George is doing all right. All right. He's not doing super great, but $45 a week in 1945, 46. Pretty decent money.
Yeah, it's actually a lot of money.
Pretty decent money for that time and for what he has accomplished. Mr. Potter wants to try to buy him out completely now and offers him a dream job. Let's face facts.
20 grand a year. And then he says, oh, wait, I see what you're doing. And so on and so forth. And so then some more time passes by, right? And then his uncle is... Okay, let me talk about a plot hole in the movie, okay?
Go ahead.
So his uncle, right? I have to speed this along, but real quick. His uncle is basically counting $8,000 that they're supposed to deposit to the bank, right? Right. And he's congratulating Mr. Potter and all that and telling him some stuff. And he I don't know, he's like, he accidentally hands over the envelope of Mr. Potter to him. And then, like, a few seconds later, as he's depositing the money, or as he's about to deposit the money, he's like, where did the money go? I had it, and he, like, starts walking out of the building, and it's like, bro, you literally had it just before you went there, and then now it's missing, and Mr. Potter, who's been trying to buy you out for nearly 2 decades now, you should have put 2 and 2 together and bum rushed his door to get the money.
Yeah, the VP had to go on a little bit of tangent here, guys. And I do agree with him. Okay. George Bailey is now very distraught. Him and Uncle Harry, they go searching all over town. They can't find the money because Mr. Potter has the money. And no, if you're wondering, no, he's never arrested. He's never charged. Nobody ever comes after him. Ever. So, yeah.
And to quote somebody from Wikipedia, that you know his name.
Yeah.
He said to him that Mr. Potter literally got away with robbery and was never apprehended for it. What a statement.
Yeah, it's from let me think. Let me check right here, guys.
Oh, look. Yeah, continue
Okay.
talking.
Yeah. So, okay, guys. Bailey's at his wits' end. He has no choice. He has to go see Potter, who previously he had just turned down. But now he can't give him, now he doesn't have the money.
I got
Potter
it.
does have it.
I got it. I'm gonna quote this. I'm gonna quote it and then give you the guy we're referencing from Andrew Cyrus, a film historian, observed as curious that the censors never noticed that the villainous Mr. Potter got away with robbery without being caught or punished in any way, because at this time the film was going off of the Hays Code.
Which is ironic because, yeah, what's about to happen, yeah. Okay, so to speed it up a little bit more, he's went to Potter. He can't get the money because Potter refuses. Potter calls the cops. He's about to go do what you think one might do in a situation where
He's
they're at
drinking.
the end of the rope.
He's drinking his sorrows away, right? And
He comes to a
beforehand,
bridge after he has crashed a car.
yeah.
Comes to a bridge. Clarence, wanting to prevent the inevitable from happening, whoop, does a dive into the river.
And then starts
Of
shouting
course,
for help.
of course so. George, without hesitation, mind you, boom, immediately into the river after him. They get out. George tells the angel, hey man, I wish I was never born. And the angel goes, oh, I wish you wouldn't have said that. You should never say that. So then he goes, hey, wait a minute. I think I got an idea. So with a little beep 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 doo, and suddenly George has never existed. And because George never existed, he was never able to pull his brother out of that pond.
Which means his brother couldn't save all those people that were about to, die from a plane crashing into a boat.
And it also means that the drug store owner accidentally
Kill the
gave
boy.
the poison to that boy.
Yeah.
And spent 20 years in the slammer because of it.
Mm-hmm.
It also means that his uncle went insane because
After
he lost
losing
the
his
business. It also means that the building and loan is now more or less a gambling house. It also means that the entire town of Bedford Falls is not Bedford Falls. It is, in fact,
Pottersville.
Pottersville.
Yeah, Pottersville.
And Pottersville is, quite frankly, and I can't believe they were even able to get away with this because of the Hays Code, but Pottersville is filled with gambling establishments. It's filled with pawn shops. Not that there's really anything wrong with either of those things because they do generate a lot of income towards said community. However, there's a lot of crime and violence that unfortunately does come from said activities. And I'm not saying that it's the fault of a pawnbroker or even the fault of a casino owner, but oftentimes that is the case. And we just have to face facts when we're talking about something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that pawnbrokers are bad or evil at all. I'm not even saying that casinos are. But when you combine everything together, including the fact that they had, well,
Places where guys like to go to.
places of ill repute, where
Yeah.
guys like to watch women dance.
Yeah. You can kind of get that from there. Anyways, George, he runs into some old people. They
He
don't
runs
know
into
him.
Violet, who is now, we forgot to mention Violet, but she was sort of like this flirty, young, towny girl. And he kind of helped her towards the end there. And
Yeah.
she was about to like go off or something. Well, because he never existed, Mary is now an old maid. Never married, never wed, never had a boyfriend, works at the library. So, yeah, it's all these things. Okay, he has a confrontation with a cop
Oh,
during
yeah.
this segment, punches the cop right square with a right hook, lays him down. Cop gets up. You know what his immediate instinct is, guys? To go bang, bang, bang through the crowd.
Yep. So then George, he finally then prays to God and says, let me live again, God. I'm sorry. And then Ernie, who he's like about to like, I'm
who
going to
he
whack you
who he just punched out previously, as Ernie was the one that was doing all of that in the town, mind
Yeah.
you. And he goes, "Oh, you know me now." And so he takes him back home, and lo and behold, the $8,000 was still missing, but the whole townspeople, because he had helped his entire life and gave his entire life to his family and to his community, each time sacrificing his own personal interest for the betterment of others, they all come in and save him and give him the money necessary. And then we find out, because this was a thing throughout the film as well, that
when a bell
when a
rings,
bell rings,
an
an
angel
angel
gets
gets its wings.
Yep. And so finally, it's a happy ending for George, right? But again, Mr. Potter never.
Receives no
Yeah.
comeuppance. None. And you'd figure that in a movie, in this time period especially, you probably would have gotten some kind of comeuppance for the villain. But this
no.
doesn't happen. He just gets away with it scot-free.
Yeah. So yeah, the film ends with George being surrounded by his loved ones and realizing what his life actually means to the people around him.
Which was the whole moral and the whole point of the story. And also, I know some of y'all won't like this out there who might watch this later on, but also the director, he directed the film because he wanted to combat atheism.
Yeah.
So
Also, we need to mention this because a lot of people will give us flack for not mentioning it, but Jimmy may or may not have been a racist.
yeah, there's some incidents out there that suggest that he could have been, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
And I'm not judging the man based on his own personal beliefs. In these particular instances, each time we are basing it on the art itself and not the actual artist's actions. And
Yeah.
if you guys have a problem with what we've just said, then I suggest you just go back and look at our
review of Rosemary's Baby.
Exactly, where we say the exact same thing about the human piece of garbage that is Roman Polanski. So, with that being said, guys, because we got to wrap this up very quickly, stay tuned next time where it's going to be
ratings. 5 out of 5.
5 out of 5 as well.
Sorry, guys.
And as always, if you've seen the It's a Wonderful Life and you believe that it is the worst Christmas film of all time, then clearly you have never seen Kirk Cameron's Saving Christmas.
Oh, you just brought that up, didn't you?
I dropped the bomb with that one.
All right, guys. Stay tuned next time where we're going to be covering Miracle on 34th Street, both the original and the remake.
Probably maybe do that one as a combination since they're pretty much the same story. But yeah, and also stay tuned for The Godfather Part 2, as that is also coming. And other than that, there is nothing else left for us to say except peace and love from Denny and Son.
Bye.